So first of all, welcome along, everybody. This class is called Recollecting Death and Taking the Essence of This Life. And we're up to class 4, so this is the final class in these series of teachings. And my name is Eddie, and I'm one of the tutors at Language Tongue Center. So we'll begin as we normally do by taking refuge together, generating the mind of enlightenment. We'll say a couple of other prayers, and then we'll begin the class. Well, of course, if you have any questions, either please write them in, or else just raise your hand, and Miffy will let me know that a question has been raised, and I can do my best to answer. So please get comfortable in your seat. Basically, this means that you have an erect back, that your shoulders are relaxed, and you can keep your eyes open or close them, whichever feels most comfortable for you. And once your body is comfortable, allow yourself to breathe normally and naturally. And while you're breathing normally and naturally, imagine that Shakyamuni Buddha and his spiritual entourage appear in the space in front of you and slightly above you. I think that all of these beings, all these enlightened beings, were able to take control over the process of dying and to direct their consciousnesses to fortunate human rebirths. And over time, they developed the path by relying upon authentic spiritual teachers. And they were able to develop the true cessations by depending upon a true path. The result of their engagement was enlightenment itself, whereby they have removed all hindrances and obstacles to the mind and have developed all of their good qualities so that they can help others do the same. I think that we're going to go for refuge to the Buddha and his spiritual entourage so that we too may free the mind of every obstacle and hindrance to goodness, and we can develop all of our good qualities to help others. I think that we're going to take refuge in the Buddha, the Sangha, and the Dharma to do that. And then recite along with me. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Now to stabilize and strengthen our aspiration for enlightenment, bring to mind the 4 immeasurable thoughts and extend them out to all sentient beings. decide that you yourself will develop immeasurable love, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity, and establish others in those four states. And in response to your wish, imagine that nectars and lights pour from the heart of the Buddha, and they wash over you and over all the beings surrounding you. And that every obstacle to these four immeasurable thoughts is washed away. And you find yourself possessing these four boundless thoughts. And while being in front of the refuge field, we'll recite the 7-limb prayer together. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actual and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginning this time, and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own and others' merits to the great enlightenment. Now, I've done something really wonderful here, but it might be the case that we really think we're somebody really special, and we might be clinging to the merit. So as a way to release any type of clinging to the merit we've accumulated, clinging to ourselves and our goal, we can imagine that our body, through the power of emptiness, transforms into a wonderful pure land, which is the mandala that we're going to offer to the Buddha and his spiritual entourage. So again, reciting along with me. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnayatayami. We've released the offering. It's accepted by the Buddha, and he smiles at us with delight. And as he's smiling at us, we look up into his eyes. And looking into his eyes, we feel accepted and at ease. And now an emanation of the Buddha leaves his heart, moves through space, and comes to abide above the crown of your head and facing in the same direction you are. The emanation descends, entering the crown of your head, coming down through your body and resting at the level of your heart, whereby it begins to expand, filling your body with light and nectars. The light and nectars go out through the pores of your skin, and they fill the 10 directions of space with light. And wherever there are beings within those 10 directions of space, acknowledge that they are touched by the light and nectar and transformed into fully awakened beings. We just relax into the sameness of all phenomena. And the light begins to withdraw from the 10 directions of space and re-enters your heart. You can feel yourself within your own body. You are embodied, sitting on a seat, breathing normally and naturally. And you know that this is taking place on the level of imagination. And although it has done, it has put upon our mind stream an imprint so that we might achieve enlightenment for the benefit of others and be able to effortlessly and spontaneously bring all beings to enlightenment itself. So allow a little sense of joy to arise within you, perhaps even put a smile upon your face, and then breathe in deeply through your nostrils, exhale through your mouth, and allow your attention to come back to the room or your screen. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for engaging in these preliminary practices, and we'll have a look now at the class for today. So we've covered a bit of material. We looked first at the two types of impermanence. This is sort of change, right? And we can look at subtle change or gross change, and gross change is dependent upon subtle change. Gross change is obvious to our senses, whereas subtle change, we really need to sort of think about it. We find that when we are to engage in the 3 roots and 9 reasons meditation, or even to think about death itself, we might find ourselves blocked in some way. What often blocks us are a phenomena called the 8 worldly concerns. Now, a way to overcome these 8 worldly concerns, of course, there are many different methods we can use, but what we really want to do as a beginner is to recollect the advantages of recollecting death and impermanence and the faults of forgetting about them or not acknowledging them. When we decide that it's to our advantage to recollect death and to not forget it, then we can engage in a meditation called the 3 roots and with the 9 reasons meditation. So we've basically talked about all this material in the last 3 classes. Now, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has written in a book called Becoming Enlightened, and this is from page 68. He says, all of us are going to die. So we need to consider the type of attitude we will have as we are dying. If during your life you have become accustomed to virtuous attitudes, then through that force of familiarization, you will be able to produce a virtuous attitude while dying. And you can help yourself to set up this attitude by placing different things near your bed, like perhaps a picture of your teacher or a statue of the Buddha himself. And so there are ways you can actually help yourself. However, if during your life you haven't familiarized yourself with a method which will produce virtue, then of course it's going to be a little bit more difficult to turn your mind to a positive way of thinking at the time of death. So today we're going to have a look at how to train yourself during your life in using what they call 5 forces, which will make it easy to bring to mind a virtuous state at the time of death. Now, of course, we're all going to face death. When we actually do, when we know we're going to die, then there are another 5 types of forces we can use. They all have the same names, but they're just slightly different and they're in a different order. And this is what we call the 5 forces that we can actually engage in at the very time of death. these five forces, you will come across them in a text basically called 7 Points of Mind Training. And in that text, this is like the fourth point. It's called, How to Elucidate a Lifetime's Practice. So one time, Miffy and another time, many years ago, I was going to do a course on death and dying. And Miffy and I had a disagreement about how I should present the course. Right? I wanted to do it one way, and she said she wanted it a different way. And so to resolve this, we asked our Lama, what should we do? And it was really interesting. So he didn't agree with either Miffy or I. In fact, he sat there at the table and he had his mala and he just ran it through his hands. And then he said, I would instruct the students from this point of view using the five forces. So ever since then, I've always done it like that. Right? It's such a useful technique to teach about the skillful things you can do at the time of death. And so these are some of the books that are relied upon. So Wholesome Fear, of course, by Lama's Rinpoche has a great section on these five forces. Path to Enlightenment down here also. In these two particular books, and Lamrim Chenmo. And of course, like I said, any of the thought transformation books are based on 7-point mind training. There's a lot of really good information in there. The other books, of course, I've sort of drawn upon all of them, but just the sentence here and the sentence there and some of the meditations. Now, when we use all this material, we become familiar with it, and then we try to meditate on it, and then we're sort of looking at what's really the great thing about becoming familiar with my own death. What's the point? What can I take away from that that's going to be really useful to me, like now and at the time of death? So I'm just going to put up a couple of slides next to a brief answer. So first of all, recollection of one's own death will stop the delusions in their tracks. And often described as being like a hammer blow because of its great power. So it says here, if one recollects death whenever attachment or anger arise. So this is what you want to be doing sort of now, right? We know we have attachment, we know we're angry. So what we could do is recollect immediately. So just think immediately, if the very next moment I was to die, what would be the consequence? So all of us will know the consequences are terrible. Right? So this is the thing, is of God, like if you just like I said, just get cut.
Eddie, this one's so effective, especially for when you're cross or frustrated at someone. It just like, if you thought is this the last thought or the last interaction I'm ever going to have with this person? It is like a hammer thing. It does, for me, just stops it dead in my tracks.
Yeah.
Like especially even with like the chores, admin and meetings and all of that. And if you get frustrated or cross and you think, what if this is the last time I ever have a meeting with this person? Even if it's a distasteful meeting, there's no way you want it to be angry. No,
that's right. So it's a great way to what they call smash the 8 worldly concerns. I'm sure all of you who are here will sort of resonate with what Miffy said. If the last interaction you had with any other person was one of either lust or anger or hate, and then the next, either, Wow, I mean, just like, is that how you want to leave people thinking of you? And then, of course, like I said, then there's the further consequences of how this can bring about a rebirth. And that's not good either for us. So these are, some of the benefits of thinking about this now and then applying it at the very same time a delusion arises. Now, so in other words, we're talking about now being mindful of our own death, recollecting our own death, because there are great benefits involved in doing so. If you were to sum it all up to say for what reason, it would be this. Don't create causes for the sufferings of lower rebirth. Because if you create the cause and the conditions are right there, the effect must follow. And so this is what's really, really dangerous at the time of death, to have a negative mind state. Because that will be the thing that's going to propel you off.
So, Eddie, this is quite different from just being just blanket terrified of death. This is actually going, well, what am I actually terrified of here? Because change is going to come. Actually, it could end up being a good thing. So where's the terror? This is actually identifying what's worth being terrified of.
Yeah, that's what we really should be afraid of. What we need, we should have it's legitimately okay to be afraid of something like this. Just like you are, it's legitimate to be afraid of running across like a 7-lane highway when somebody's told you to do it. You should be afraid.
Yeah, and
There's
at least
wrong with
like
being afraid there.
With this one, you can do something about it. Whereas being just afraid of dying, you can't do anything about that.
No, and that's so, like, as we know, we can't escape death. We are all going to die. And that's not really, you can't say it's a good thing or a bad thing. That's just a consequence of being born. Right? But the other things, like what happens afterwards, if you had some idea of what might happen afterwards, it could be good or it could be bad, then we could go, okay, if it was bad, like how bad? It was absolutely terrible. And you go, okay, I don't want that. I wish to avoid that experience. So one should be, being afraid can help you do that. That level of fear is very useful. You will do what you can to avoid it. So it's not like sometimes you might have heard, especially newcomers to the Buddha Dharma, it's like, oh, all fear is bad. No, we shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't have fear. Like it feels terrible. But fear can propel you to act. It can have you freeze. It can have you blank out altogether. So the good thing here is to become, like, through your reading, through your study, through conversation, see if it's legitimate to be afraid of something like this. If such a future did exist, then I think it's legitimate to be afraid. So in response to our fear, we become virtuous people. Well, we protect the mind from negativity. So here's a very brief meditation that Khyentse Rinpoche gave us one day. So he says that to be concerned about separating from our friends and wealth at the time of death is unreasonable. So like I said, we just can't keep living. And as you know, whatever comes together falls apart, is separated. So we have this natural thing called impermanence going on, but there's also death. And death is like this, complete separation from whatever, from your body, from everything you used to hold on to. So to be concerned, It doesn't help you. It's no good. You can't take it. So we have to be less concerned about our possessions and these types of relationships and be ready to go, what's next? What's coming up next? The second part is this, like, so something unusual, something that we're not really aware of is going to come up and happen. So if we are afraid at that very time, that's not a good time to be afraid. So we do not want to die under the control of disturbing emotions, because the karmic outcome of that is a lower realm rebirth. Now, and that fear is reasonable, which is what we saw the last slide was sort of saying. However, or because we've generated some legitimate fear right now, we've prepared ourselves. We're going to go, yeah, I don't actually have to go through that. That doesn't have to actually happen to me. I can avoid it. So I can die with my mind at ease. I'm easy. No, it's like, I remember this times when I was a kid at school, you'd have to sit outside the headmaster's office and you get pulled into the office one at a time and you'd hear the sound of the cane. It's like, while you're out there, oh man, you get so scared. So my mates would go in before me and he's just sort of waiting there thinking, oh my God, the same thing's going to happen to me. Because they've all put into place the causes for it. And so you're going to have it. But then, you see other students just walk right by you. They'd be in the same place, but they're not sitting in the chair I'm sitting in. They would look at you and say, yeah, you're going to get the cane. But they didn't. You go like, well, how come you guys aren't getting the cane? You'd say, well, we didn't do what you did. So they don't get it. And it's like they can walk past the headmaster's office with a mind at ease, while me sitting out there waiting for my turn under the cane, I'm not at ease. I'm very scared.
So Eddie, when I was at school, I never got the cane, but when I walked past the headmaster's school, when I first came to a school in Queensland, I was so shocked that they still gave people the cane that I marched into the headmaster's office and told him off for like human rights abuses. And they were so shocked that like a grade 10 girl would be saying that they actually didn't do anything. They didn't give me the cane, but they didn't. And, like the year after that, it was made illegal.
Okay.
But there you go. There are some people that are out there that are going to help you.
Yeah. So to prepare ourselves that we can actually die with the mind at ease, we'll now look at these 5 forces, 5 actions we can do during our lifetime. And then later on, if we're fortunate enough to actually be in a bed or be in a place where we know, well, this is it, I'm on my way out here, I'm dying. Then we can do these other practices. And these first 5 during life will support what we do at the time of death. So let's go through the 5 forces that we face during life. So these are the 5 names, but they also have other names. So I'll just mention a few of those. So under this first name, the power of resolve, is often called the power of intention. That's how I most often see it mentioned in books. But it also has other terms like the power of the impetus, power of like resolution. You're resolved to do something. Power of determination. The second is the power of familiarization, also called the power of training. So whatever you've trained yourself to do while you've been alive, as we are, we're familiar with it. We know what to do at that time. The white sea is just another term for virtue. Positive activity, positive mental activity. The power of a revulsion has a number of other different terms too. One is called the power of repudiation, exposure, and Lama Zopa calls it, or Lama Yeshe calls blaming the ego. And lastly, prayer is an aspiration. You can often see it like that sometimes. So different words. So this is taken from Gallic Rinpoche now, and this is a quote of his put in a text called Lojong Mind Training in 7 points. So here he says, these are the 5 powerful forces in life. These 5 are really considered to be the true practice. Apply these 5 as your daily chore. Practice does not really have to be done at a certain period where you say, this is the time for practice, so please don't disturb me. In fact, you should carry these 5 forces with you during every part of the day, with everything you do. And you'll see how you can shortly as we go through each one of them. Let's look at the power of resolve first of all. So this is like it's you are determined to do something. It's your intention to do something. And this is this resolve you have. And what is it that you are resolved to do? It is to do your very best to not allow the mind to come under the control of negative emotions, disturbing emotions, negativity. That's what you want to do. You're resolved to do this. And if you say, like, well, why? Yeah, your answer to yourself is because I could die at any moment, man. Nothing's stable here. Yeah. So when we go, we want to go with a good heart. That's going to keep us happy, good results. So there are, like I said, there are many different virtuous ways of thinking and behaving, as you are probably all familiar with. So let's, so this is from another great Lama. This Lama spent a lot of time in Australia. His name was Traleg Rinpoche. He was a great Lama from the Kagu tradition. And he said, the psychic energy...
Eddie, just stop the screen share for a sec so we can see you when you're reading. Sorry.
The psychic energy that we invest in our activities by projecting our positive determination into the future has a tremendous influence on the quality and direction of our lives, making every day seem new, fresh, and full of potential. So if we seize the moment to focus our energy on a positive direction, then we'll transform our lives into a spiritual journey of significance.
So Eddie, to do that, to have that resolve in a way, we've kind of got to wake up in our mind, and what wakes us up, isn't it, is the thought of the thought of death.
The certainty of death and the uncertainty of its time. So, like I said, so what I would suggest you do is try to think about like if you were finally on your deathbed, what would you want to think? So the thing for me that I came up with was this. Whoopsie. This death that I'm undergoing will only be of benefit to others. And he might say, well, like, how's that going to be, Eddie? And I'm going to say, I'm going to show you how to die. I'm going to show you how a Dharma practitioner dies. There's no need to be afraid, right? That's my thing here. Everything is at ease. I'll be trying to put the people around me at ease. Miffy, you have something to
Oh
ask?
yeah, so Alicia wanted you to can you read that quote out again, because it was really good.
The one from Trolley Rinpoche.
Yeah.
Sure. He says, the psychic energy that we invest in our activities by projecting our positive determination into the future has a tremendous influence on the quality and direction of our lives, making every day seem new, fresh, and full of potential.
Right. So the operative thing there
is
the
moment to focus our energy on this positive direction, we'll transform our lives into a spiritual journey of significance.
So it's about projecting, isn't it, into the future, this one, the resolve.
Yeah, this is our thing. Like, I remember here, like, our future is one moment away. Right?
So, and Joe here says, I like Eddie's quote there, when we go with a good heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so like I've, what can I say? If we train now and try to make it like that we're natural, right? So that it will be natural for us. We won't be lying there thinking, what should I be thinking? Or what did Lama say? Or, I'm trying to think of a quote or something. You go, no. You already got this. So there's some, like I said, but you can go through the different texts. You'll see lots of good advice there. Find one that resonates with you and go, this is how I'd like to die. This is how I'd like to leave the living. So when you say, this death will only benefit others, one of my thoughts is, well, I'd like to continue with my spiritual development. My life, like I said, I'm in my late 60s. I might not make it to 80. And even if I do, lots of things can happen to my brain, mind, body. Perhaps I won't have the ability to think as I think now. They're all possibilities, aren't they? So it's like, well, okay, that's all true, possible. Well, okay, so think now, what do I really want to do? What can I do now? And try and build on it. But you've got something to work with. Like for us, you've got the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others. That's why this is how my death is going to benefit others. I'm going to keep on engaging in my spiritual training by taking a good human rebirth, the leisure and opportunity to engage in practice again. Because I'm honest with myself. I know, look, I'm not going to get liberated this time or enlightened. I started too late. I watched too many movies. This is too much music. I get distracted a lot. But at the same time, I do believe in the continuity of mind. I'm certain that the negativities aren't intrinsic to the mind and so forth. So the rebirth will take place. Death is not the complete end. That being the case, what's the next thing that I can do? And like if you've thought enough about this material while you're here and alive, you'll work out the best thing you can do with your life is to become enlightened. And just like you want to help others now, you'll want to help them then too. Just be effortless and spontaneous, and you'll be more skilled. So come up with some sort of intention, some sort of resolve you can naturally hold on to. Now, of course, one of the things that's going to help you to do this is the next force, which is called the force of familiarity. So what do you want to become familiar with? Well, one of the things you want to become familiar with is your looming death. like I said, I'm mid-60s, go 80, you're probably gone. But all of us, you can walk out the door and slip on the step and break your neck. You can just eat something that doesn't agree with your tummy, and next thing you're dead. Right? So do remind yourself of this, that it could take place any time. So bring a good heart with you, wherever you, in each moment of your life, try to have this, the good heart, right? A wish to bring about enlightenment for all beings. The other thing we need to familiarize ourselves with is what they call the two body cheetahs. One is this, like this, this aspiration to become enlightened for the sake of others, and know that that aspiration will depend upon method and wisdom. And without, we need both here. We really do need both. So as we go through our lives, try to become familiar with dependent origination and the emptiness of inherent existence, and combine that with your understanding of all conventional phenomena. People, our wishes, our goals, none of these things have any intrinsic nature whatsoever. They exist, but dependently. So we don't want to, we want to sort of act sort of relaxed like that. We don't want to be clinging and grasping to things as if they had an intrinsic nature, when in fact they don't.
So Eddie, both of those, the two bodhicittas, both of them serve to help us relax, actually, if we do them, because we're not grasping onto inherence and then getting all uptight about it, and we're also filling our heart with love.
Yeah, so one of the ways of, like say, it's interesting, so you use the term filling the heart with love. As you know, we're all engaged in a type of Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism. And Mahayana Buddhism is its foundation, its root is this thing, bodhicitta. And yet, if you read the text, if you listen to your teachers, you'll understand this is not an easy thing to do. In fact, His Holiness said, if you've read some of his material, he said, yeah, at 19, I was quite happy with emptiness. I could get my head around that. But the mind of enlightenment, that's another story, right? That seems very difficult. And if you read the stories of the training, you'll know some people took 13 years, others took 11. It takes time. So we have to just do the best that we can. And even if we don't have this, the authentic mind of enlightenment, we could still think that conceptually it makes good sense. It's sensible. So we could work from that level. And one of the ways of helping you to do that, of course, is this practice that most of you are familiar with, called Tonglen, or giving and taking. Now, what is fantastic about that practice, especially if you can become familiar with it now, right? So at the time of death, you can do it, is that it works on your breathing. So as long as you breathe, you create virtue, which is sort of amazing, isn't it? That's just something else. So if you've been practicing at the time, like just breathing in, when I breathe in the suffering of all beings. Doing so destroys my self-cherishing, my indifference towards others. In response to the destruction of my indifference, I give love. Right? So on the out-breath, love and kindness to all beings. Knowing they want to be free from suffering, and you know how things dependently exist and have no inherent existence, you breathe in the suffering which exists in mere name. But then you give it out again. And it's never, you don't put it on you. You put it on the self-cherishing, the wrong thought, the wrong mind. So you're not destroying yourself or making yourself sick or anything like that. It's this very easy way of creating virtue through the breath. Again, it takes a bit of time, but if we're young enough, we can put the time into it and look at its sensibilities and try and engage in it. Okay, so then we move on from the force of familiarization to the force of white seed. So again, the white seed, remember, is this virtue. So we say, so practice the Dharma purely. meaning don't get involved in the eight worldly concerns, or do your best to mitigate your involvement with the eight worldly concerns. You want less eight worldly concerns, more pure practice. Because like I said, you can't take your friends with you, you can't take your wealth with you, your reputation will be left behind, your body will be left behind. So what's going to go with you? Well, your virtue and your negativity. But at the time of death, you want your virtue to ripen, not your negativity, because the results are so much better for you. And then the force of, so this is what I like this one, I call the force of revulsion. So this is because you actually know what hurts you and hurts others. Right? So it's like, I've got to get rid of that. And what really hurts you and hurts others is these two things, self-grasping and self-centeredness. So as much as you can do to work against those two, the better off you are. So, you know, we're saying, so during life, self-grasping and self-centeredness has got me into all sorts of trouble. And it will do the same at the time of death. Like, this doesn't change. So I'm going to do the very best I can to not die under the control of either of these two. And the simple way is that my death is for you. It's not about me, it's for you. I'm dying to this life is karma's come out, my life's finished here, but I'm dying for you because I intend to become enlightened. I'll see you again. Hope you're all my disciples. You know, and I'm a Buddha. We sort of try and encourage ourselves by this, by acknowledging what harms and laying it down. So Tralik Rinpoche, again, he calls this the power of exposure. And he says the power of exposure will reveal the false reality we have constructed for ourselves. Fantasies appear real to us because of the twisted logic we use to convince ourselves that our illusions are real. So we have a lot of time to work against that while we're living. And another great Lama, Rindu Tunku, from his book Mind Training, says, from the beginning of time, suffering has come from ego clinging and aversion to suffering. We defeat these illusions by abandoning our selfishness and our self-cherishing. So this force is directed at completely disowning the ego and its influence. So that's what we should be, you know, try and work on now during this life. Work against the false conceptions, the false ideas we have, and our clinging to them. Try and recognize their falsity and drop the clinging. And then we have the force of prayer, or the force of aspiration. So here Lama Zopa says, may we never be separated from genuine teachers, the Dharma, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and these two attitudes, the two body teachers. Other things, you know, through your force of prayer, like when you go tonight, you remind yourself, through the force of aspiration, I wish to recollect my own impermanence and certain death. Because when I do, I engage in Dharma correctly, purely. When I forget, then all the problems come. Then the eight worldly concerns rear their heads and I get swept away.
Eddie, so with the force of prayer, yeah, again, you have to be quite courageous with it, isn't it? Because there's this aspiration, like at the beginning. Now, at the end of the day, we've got this aspiration, but you've got to have that courage to have a big vision, to actually not just hope things don't turn out too badly, but actually, go
Yeah, we need to
make
go a
it
little
much
bit,
more.
yeah, we want to go a little bit more beyond just sort of hoping and wishing. I mean, like our aspirations are actually based on reason. If you go through the text and a good teacher, they'll always introduce you to like it's reasonable. Like it's not blind faith here that something's going to happen after death. And that we should get ready for it. So one of the prayers, or one of the aspirations, again from Tralik Rinpoche, he says, may whatever I have done, no matter how small, have a ripple effect and influence the lives of other beings in a positive way so that they can develop bodhicitta in their mind streams and become freed of resentment, bitterness, hostility, and hatred. May they find comfort and ease through the practices of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So as you know, again, if you go through the different texts, you'll see lots of prayers there and aspirations. Find the one that suits you, that really touches your heart, and go, you get that sort of thing, go, yeah, like that. That's how I feel. Take that, write it out, say it. Mm-hmm. And then you've got it, And this is what have I got now? A quote by the Panchen Lama. So I'll really like this, right? He says, in short, whatever happens, good and bad, through practice of the 5 forces, essence of all Dharma, becomes a path to increase the 2 enlightenment spirits. Bless me to contemplate indomitable cheer. So, or any of you have been doing the Lama Chepa, this is in there, right? Verse 97. So that's great. I love that, Be cheerful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And I suggest you're right to feel cheerful. You've led a good life. Of course, at the beginning, one part of it might have been a bit messed up. But once you discovered the Dharma, you made changes. You deliberately changed. And what you've been creating through those changes is virtue, a good positive state of mind. Your focus has come off yourself, and it's more concerned with others, or at least equally concerned with others. You're not, you don't want to hurt anyone. You're actually trying your best to help others be happy. But be cheerful. This is great. So at the time of death, die with this, at ease. In fact, feeling quite joyful that you've lived a life of a meaningful life. So this is what we can do, right now, and right up to the time of our death. And at the time of death, we apply these 5 forces again, but in a different order, and they have slightly different practices that you do with them. So let's have a look at those. So here we have again, but same words, same names, but different order.
So Eddie, is this now like if we've had a terminal diagnosis, or we're enjoying the leisure of dying at home in our own bed, with lots of time? Is this like when the actual death process is happening or on its way, kind of thing?
Yeah, so just like you've explained it, if you've got a bit of time, you may have had a diagnosis where you've got 3 months or a certain period of time to live in. Now you want to switch over and go, okay, now my death is set, it's been established here. I can't be sure exactly when, but I've got to get ready there for that.
Yeah. And
this is what I'm going to do now.
Right.
So now the
Huh? I was just thinking, this is like when my mother, Inta, who started Langri Tongpa Center, when she got her terminal diagnosis and she told Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and Rinpoche wrote this incredible letter, I think it was published in Mandala magazine, saying how terrible and how wonderful to have this diagnosis, because, of course, terrible, but also wonderful because she had like 3 months to get it together, basically. To have it's like a sneak preview, like to have the leisure to actually do this practice.
And this is what Rinpoche advised Miffy's mum to do, the 5 forces. He didn't say go and do the Vajrayogini practice you've been familiar with for so many years. And in fact, when Lama Yeshe died, he did the same, used the 5 forces. Like, this is really like doable. It's not what you say, really highly advanced practice. Like I said before, you see, like it's the essence of all practice. You'll see all the parts are in there, these 5. So, like I said before, the virtue is this, the attitude of the mind of enlightenment and so forth, or any really positive quality. But here, when we use the term white seed, it's actually start giving away all your property, give away anything that you might be attached to. So it's a specific type of activity you can engage in. Like, so many of you might have quite a few Dharma books. Like if you look behind me, you can see part of my collection, right? I'm going, oh my gosh, where are all these books going to go? But I've got that solved. That's what I can offer. We are a book to every student here. I can put some in our library that we don't have. There's many things you could do that would sort of add a sense of joy to your life, isn't there? With the giving away of things. Like Miffy's mum, I remember one time, so she got out of bed and I assisted her to go from the bedroom to the toilet. And on the way, she took off her ring and gave me her ring and said, here, take this, I won't need it anymore. And we can do the same sorts of things.
Actually, this is something that we can just do anyway, like to just go write a will, because I went and wrote a will. And so it just gets your mind thinking about, you get great joy in thinking, oh, these books I'm going to give to my, to my old school. These ones I'm going to give to a school in Brisbane. These ones, going to Langri Thomas Center. And just thinking about it, because you're imagining it, you're actually practicing giving them away already. So you already stop being attached and you already get the joy of giving them away.
And so, in fact, His Holiness says, His Holiness the Dalai Lama from the Foundation of Buddhist Practice on page 226 says, the first of the 5 forces, the white seed, is done before actively dying, when the mind is clear and can make decisions. Create merit and free your mind from attachment to possessions by giving them away. Forgive all those who have harmed you intentionally or unintentionally, and apologize to all those who you have harmed. If it's not possible to apologize directly to a person, reconcile with them in your mind, which is most important. Also, recall that there's no sense worrying about what happens to your body after death. It's just simply a lump of organic matter. Accept death as a natural part of life. So I remember when I first, was a Dharma student and we did this topic, this sort of like freaked me out to act really quickly. So I immediately wrote a letter to my father and sort of, let's say, acknowledge the part that I played in the difficulties of our relationship. So I thought, there's no way I want to die here thinking about the things my old man did to me and what I did to him. That's not going to happen. And it's the same thing with, as you grow up, you have relationships with different people. Sometimes you hurt them. So I knew there was a particular girl that I hurt when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I thought, man, I found out where she lived, rang her up, said sorry. It's a smart move for you. You never know what you're going to think. So you don't want to be thinking, I don't want to be thinking at the time I did, oh man, I wish I'd never said that to her, and think of all the hurt that I do. No. So whatever you can solve now, like get a move on. Don't wait too long, right? Because like I said, your death could take place at any time. Not only that, the person you might like to apologize to might die and then you can't. So, you know, then you got to sort of work out, how am I going to do this? So this is this white seed, like letting go of things or giving things up, possessions, ideas, so forth. Okay, so the next one, well, then we've got a quote first. So what's Geshe Potama says? So here's the thing, he says, may I always be a protector to those who are helpless and a guide to those afflicted by confusion. So again, you know, this is just this, you know, just this terrific way of thinking. Like, you know, like, have you ever been around the bed of somebody who's dying, and you know, you are sort of helpless. There's very little, you know, most people who don't have a religious training, what do? You know, people just sort of stand around and are upset, basically. But that's not going to help yourself or the dying person. So, like I said, you know, you can put yourself in either place. If you're around the bedside, how can you protect this person who's dying? How can I help their mind? If you're the person in the bed, then you go, okay, how can I protect these around me who do not know how to protect? What can I offer them? So, which leads us to the force of resolve, right? Again, I just say this death that I experience is only for your benefit. This is whatever I experience as I face death and move through the death process into the next rebirth, I will always think of only ever benefiting others. So you just sort of, again, this will have to come through quite a bit of study and sort of heartfelt response to what you read and think about. You know, so one of the things that you'll notice in the Bodhisattva's way of life, you know, where they ask, you know, like, you know, Shanti Davis says, oh my gosh, this thing called self-cherishing. I've always thought it's been my, you know, this great friend and supporter of mine, but in fact, it's harmed my way of being in the world and harmed all these living beings. You know, so, and, you know, look at the difference between this. I cherish myself and the Buddha cherishes others. Look at the difference between us. And, you know, also in Bodhisattva's way, if you apply it to yourself, you go through and go, well, it's true. My focus is me, right? I am the most important person, and everything I've been doing is really about me. And if you're honest, you know, before becoming a Buddha-dom, and probably quite a way along, you'll go, yeah, that's right. And then you ask yourself, so how's it worked out? Right? How's it worked out? And, you know, you could go, geez, it could have been a heck of a lot better. And you go, yeah, well, it's because of this self-cherishing thing. Self-cherishing gets in the way. Self-cherishing makes me indifference to the needs of my partner and the kindness of others. You know, it's just selfishness. So we've got to sort of work against it. And like I said, again, there are different ways of doing it. One of the simplest ways is, especially at the time of death, is to use the what's called the 7-limb practice. So, you know, we did that as we came in here, you know, like reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. It's like, yep, I leave myself open, you know, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, like help, but really, you know, I've already helped myself. I've got a virtuous mind. Reverently I prostrate my body, speech, and mind. I make offerings, both actual and imagined. You know, so actually you've already given things away. Imagine, you can say, like, you know, all the merit that I've ever accrued, whatever goodness I'm doing, like even right now, may it be yours. You have it. You have it. I know you want to be happy. You have it. So, you know, we have this resolve to keep helping sentient beings and our wish and this resolve to become enlightened too. So no more egoistic self-obsession. And again, you know, like, you can know this yourself. If you know that the worst moments of your life have come about because of your ego got in the way, it caused a lot of problems. You can say, you know, with great aspiration, you know, real sincere wish, Jesus, no more of that. No more of that. Let me see. So some of the things you could say, today I'm letting go of every obstacle. No more egoistic self-obsession and the attendant suffering and pain for me. Another one is, as self-grasping is the source of all misery, I will not latch on to a body in Nirvana. Because this is one of the things, our attachment to the body here carries the cross because it's mental, right? So it carries the cross through we've died and now we're in the in-between. So we are going to be going like, it's like you're like wind or space. You're not embodied, but you want to be embodied. You want to be grounded. So of course that want to be grounded is the grasping for solidity, to have a body again. Because in the body is of wind, right? It's just energy, and there's all this sort of experiences you're going to see, and just like, you know, it's like a stopping of it, just to be like real again.
So Eddie, with this one, the force of revulsion. So we're kind of, I just remember one of the lamas kind of making this joke about the burgers are better in Tashita, you know. So if we've got this kind of craving to just have revulsion for the ordinary burgers and go for the ones in the Pure Land, you know. And it was great because there's this ad, you know, and the ad goes, the burgers are better at whatever chain, but it's no, the burgers are better in Tashita.
Mm. You know, in terms of this force of revulsion, so Lama Zopa Rinpoche says in the book about fear, he says, this power is the power of blaming the ego. This can also be thought of as the power of determination to subdue one's self-cherishing, to subdue each self-cherishing thought that arises. It's important to recognize that the ego, the self-cherishing thought, is the source of all suffering, all harm in the world. It's the most destructive thought imaginable. So we do not want to have that at this time of death. Right? You know, want to be, so this is also like yeah, we want to be continuing letting go, giving up, offering. Which leads us into the force of prayer. So here's this lovely way you can pray.
Oh, hang on a second, Eddie. So there's some comments here from Danny, and I'm not sure if she's joking or not, but she has been saying about, you know, rebirth as a kitty.
I'm not joking at all. And this is a controversial subject here. Animals are supposed to be dumb, and yeah, they are. Dumb actually means that one can't speak. But I want to come back as a fucking cat, and that's the way it is. It's not a joke.
I couldn't hear all this very well.
So we've been having this side conversation, and Danny's been saying, I want to come back as a kitty. And so I was saying, well, what about coming back as a snow lion, you know, aiming for a divine you know, rebirth. Exactly. Shayla's saying, you know, like a simple life. So this kind of idea that, you know, the kitty's life.
Shayla said it, but yeah, no, there's something to be said for that. Sometimes the animals can be bodhisattvas. And so what if I decide to come back as a bodhisattva as an animal?
Well, the the bodhisattva, the wish to be the bodhisattva is great. And of course, bodhisattvas at certain, through their training, are able to manifest bodies of different forms and so forth. But the thing here is bodhisattva, not kitten. Right? You go bodhisattva manifest as kittens, well, good.
Meow.
Yeah, that's right. But don't, you really need to sort of think this through. Like I think, so what's the great thing about kittens? Why do you want to come back as a kitten?
I personally feel like I am one, and it's really weird. I identify it as that, which is really stupid. But anyway, that's all.
Well, what I was trying to get at here is that, we've got kittens ourselves. And, what I was trying to find out is, so what do you really like about kittens? What do kittens provide you with that you really love them and want to come back as one yourself? So, you got to come up with some qualities, really good qualities.
Unconditional love.
And that's exactly what you want, the qualities, not necessarily the body.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I'm trying to do that in the human form too. It's love. That's
yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And we're the same. Like, what a lovely thing about having a kitten or a cat is that you become so affectionate towards them. Right? They draw out of us our kindness, our caring. Right? So that's the thing you want, the kindness, the caring. It's just in the body of any other animal than a human being, it's so limited. In the mind of the human being, it can go all sentient beings, every sentient being, cats, crocodiles, any being with a consciousness. That has much greater power than to find your consciousness trapped in the body of a kitten or any other animal. But that's the wonderful thing with the human mind.
And the nice thing about this too is that because it is our kittens and our puppies that often bring out that real sense of care and vulnerability, we can at least dedicate for them too, can't we?
Yeah, that's right. We have to remember their kindness.
That's great kindness they show us, so we can dedicate on their behalf.
So here we've got this statement, may this death support all the sufferings, defilements and negative karmas of every sentient being. So we're saying that one of the lovely things about this is that, if you think about as much as the cats help us to be affectionate and so forth, like our ones, they will hunt birds. They will hunt any little thing and kill them. So that's the negativity, the negative actions that cats do. And we know that. So we can say, okay, that negative karma that they created, I'll take that off you. Let me take that off you through this death. May you be freed of it. Again, the force of familiarization. So, we're trying to familiarize ourselves with a thought. Paula, yeah?
Just very, very fast, just a thought. Animals aren't as kind as people seem to think they are, nor do they have a particularly easy life. Depends on the animal. And so I wouldn't say an animal life is an easy option or a way away from suffering. That's the only comment I've got.
Okay, thank you. So here, the force of familiarization. So here I've really put up the thought, especially in relationship to the Tonglen practice. So may every sentient being be spared from experiencing pain as a result of my own endurance of it. So this is, again, rooted in the Tonglen way of thinking. But in terms of the familiarization, what they encourage you to do is to lie in your bed in a particular way. So you're trying to do is to block off the idea of having angry thoughts arise in your mind. So you lie in what they call a lion posture, and you block off one of your nostrils, and you sleep like that, or you rest like that as often as possible. In fact, just the other day, I read about a lama who used to walk with his head slightly tilted towards the right to hinder the energy that moves through the subtle channels, stopping anger. Yeah. So I thought it was quite interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, so, like I said, so we've got to work out some sort of thinking or practice that we can become very familiar with, become second nature to us. So we do it here as well. But like I said, as well as that, we put the body in a particular posture. And also, I love this quote too, notice, so may we remember instructions for practice when doctors forsake us and rights are of no avail. Friends have given up hope for our life and we're left with nothing else to do. So just recently, a good friend of mine, his daughter is dying. She's a quadriplegic now. She has to communicate. She's got to have one of those little straws in her mouth and on the machines, and you tick out the message. Okay? So when he told me this, my first thought was like, well, wow, I wouldn't mind dying like that. Like, because it's like, there's no escape here, right? You can't miss your girlfriend, boyfriend, money, all that stuff gone. You cannot get involved in it. All that's left is your mind. And your body, the nurses, whatever, are going to keep that going as long as they can. So all you've got left is your mind. So from a Dharma perspective, like, this could be really good. It's terrific time. Now you can really solidify practice. However, his daughter's not a Dharma practitioner. She used to come to the center occasionally, young woman. It's like, hey, man, I want to have some fun. I want to be ordinary. I want to live a normal life. So she did, up to a point. And now this is the rest of it. But no training. So what do you do then? What do you do now? So, we're really fortunate to have come across the Buddha Dharma and find authentic teachers and teachings that could prepare you for just such an event. And we could look at it as going, this is great. Now, like I can't, like the only person left to fall here is you. and you're going to go, and I'm not doing that, man. This is too serious.
Eddie, also this idea, like I've had a similar thought when you hear about people in the old people's homes and confined to their bed and so lonely, and it's actually this incredible opportunity where you are looked after, everything's done, and you're just kind of left alone. And for an ordinary person, that would be neglect. But actually, for a Dharma practitioner, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's right. So His Holiness says, in terms of this familiarization, one of the things you want to do, if best you can, right? So if you're going to a Dharma center, then you have Dharma friends, right? You have people that you're all engaged in the same sort of thing. If possible, I'd suggest you try and make it possible. Get into a good relationship with somebody there or your teacher, because you might need assistance at the time of death. It might be nice, like with Miffy's mother. Right? So I and another student would do her sadhanas for her. We would read out the whole sadhana for her, and then she could listen to us and she could practice it. You might like somebody to encourage you to keep on engaging in Dharma. Like you might have a time where actually it all feels overwhelming. And somebody could be there with you and go, it's okay. No matter how you behave right now, it's okay. It's all right. Somebody just who can accept you as you are through the lens of Dharma.
And to remind you of your guru.
Remind you of any sort of thing that would help you. Like I said, the Dharma, the guru, the good things that you've done in your life, all this sort of stuff. So it's helpful to sort of to have assistance like that. So now I'm going to finish off basically by asking, so how, like, this Dharma thing is really about ourselves, but we also know our good friends die too, and other people we know die too. So how can we be of assistance then? So if he was looking at it, so she's saying, what's this picture telling us, Eddie? I'm just kind of, okay, well, he's a doctor. And he's sort of going like this. So we go like, what we can do as being the doctors of the Dharma, right? We represent the Dharma. We're there to help the patients. We have to encourage a sense of rejoicing in the goodness. We try and remind them of their kindness. And if they're still holding on to things, encourage them to let it go through forgiveness. And like I said, I've got recollect something virtuous. So I was thinking I should put down there recollect anything virtuous. So we try and do that. So one of the things I remember with who was it? One of the nuns and I went along to a man who was dying, and so like he's in the hospital bed, and just outside in the corridor are his family all sitting there, And so we made up our plan. We go, okay, we walk through, we see the family, and we encourage them. Now, stop thinking so much of yourself and just sitting there glooming. Think about this man and all the good, funny things that he did in his life, and start telling each other stories. So you often, you'll see this in the Irish wakes. It's not an uncommon thing where people recollect the other person's life, and they often start laughing at the funny things they did and that sort of thing. But here you could say, think of the good things this man has done, or this woman. When my sister was dying, I rang up and said, I want you to think something like virtuous, something good that you've done. And she went, like what? And I was just went, like you raised a daughter? Like, you know what it takes to raise a girl? Any child? That's amazing. And she said, but at least I sort of kicked her off. And then I'll try and find other, as long as you can sort of talk, you can keep reminding people of the goodness that you've done. So also remember that goodness can be the restraint of doing something wrong. That's a good action. You determine not to do something evil, harmful, hurtful. That's virtue. So you've got the negative side of what you didn't do and the positive side of what you did do. Now, of course, when you're around the bed of somebody who's dying, and I know you care for them, you have to realize, is this person a Buddhist practitioner or not? Because that is going to help you to decide how to behave. Miffy, you've got your hand
Eddie,
raised?
I was just thinking to add to that recalling something virtuous. So people can often think, oh, I've been a failure as a parent, or I've been a failure as this or that. But actually to recollect, perhaps, that even if we're not perfect at what we're doing, there's definitely things that we haven't passed on to our, to the next generation, like of abuse. So even if you manage to stop generations of abuse, even if you don't feel you're a great parent, but if you manage to not beat your kids or not yell at your kids, or, to actually, like you said, recognize all the harm that you refrained from counts, I think, as much, because it stops that horrible generational trauma that goes on. That's no small matter.
No, it's not. So we try to help the families and the person who's dying, encourage a good heart, a good positive mind. And so now for two things to do, and now I've got two things to not do. And the first one is, don't introduce something you're unfamiliar with, right? Don't start talking about karma if they got no idea about karma or Buddha or anything like that, if that's not their thing.
So if they're not Buddhist, we don't talk about Buddhist stuff.
How do you find out something like that? Maybe do they have a spiritual thing at all? Now, if they don't, you can always say, you might say to them, like, I'm a Buddhist, don't you? And they're going to go, oh, no, I didn't know that. So, well, I am. And like, I know you might, I don't know what you really think, but I know there's this thing called a mantra. I just like to say it. I want you to hear it. It won't do you any harm, like it's new, but you're introducing it to them. In a way to say, look, just listen to it.
Yeah.
So you go, Om Mani Padme Hum, or Om Tare, Tu Tare Ture. You could bring in a mantra here. You could bring in the Dharma, but like I said, be careful with this. Ask them for permission.
Would this be something like if people have, they may not be religious, but they may have been very moved by poetry throughout their life? If there was any great poem that moved them, would that be
well, I can say, so what I would be doing is, like, if the poem, if I read that poem or something, and I could look at it and go, this could really contribute to their future rebirth in a positive way, then I'd find that line or something like that, or try and draw that out for them. But it's not a good idea, to sort of put this sort of extra weight on somebody's mind, because, like I said, they don't know. So find out what they do know and work within that. And, like with all things the things that work, kindness, love, compassion, all these qualities, right? That's what actually works. That's the real Dharma. So try and work on that level, that really quite simple, basic level.
Excuse me, Eddie. Can Irlanda please come in?
I'm sorry?
Can Irlanda please come forwards with a question?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thank you. So my question was about the posture for death. Is it to the right, you said? To get familiar?
It's like to lie on the right side and to block off the right nostril.
That may vary. Sometimes they say that women should be on the other side.
It depends upon
whatever.
There's you're quite right. So there's a dependencies here. So if you have like practices of highest yoga tantra, then there's definitely going to be this difference. So you might say, if you're practicing this tantra, you lie on this side. If you're not in tantra in general, it's the right hand side, because of the
because of which channels are being blocked, right. And so you're blocking the physical channels, so that it makes it much. It helps to block those disturbing emotions.
Yeah. So really, it is dependent, for sure. But don't get too sort of like, like I said, being dependent. So in terms of highest yoga tantra, you could get different advice on which side to lie upon and which channels you're blocking and that sort of thing. And as Shayla said, you might be. Do you have a lama who gives you general advice? Says, look, as a woman, lie on the left and block it. And so you go, okay, well, thank you. Have a go.
Okay. And I have another question, but if we're having questions at the end, I can wait till the end.
We'll be at the end very shortly. So we'll just get there and end, and we'll open it up. So the other thing is avoid emotional outpourings. If you're there don't add that to it, to their distress. Most of the few people I know who died, they're really concerned about the living. They want the living to be happy and okay. So if you're distressed, that makes it a little bit harder for the person who's dying. Okay, so what's our takeaway from this? Especially that you do know there are 5 forces you can use during your lifetime, and then you can use the same 5, but a different order that you can use at the time of death. Okay, so now Yolanda, you'd like to ask something else?
Stop the screen share, honey. So stop
Okey-dokey,
so we can see the wonderful people.
The wonderful peeps. Where are you? Okay, please, questions.
Okay.
Yolanda.
My question is there a Buddha for death, like directly?
I was just going to say, there's a bodhisattva in the Japanese tradition for the death of children.
Okay.
But I don't, in the Tibetan tradition, I'm not familiar with particularly.
I think also Siddhi has a lot to do with, protecting
Sure.
from death in the lower realms. And then there are, of course, then the tantric practices as well that are. So Yamantaka.
Yeah, I was say there you got like Yamantaka. I think, wow, there's the big one, right? Especially in the Galupa tradition. Now that is definitely an opponent against uncontrolled death and hatred. So yeah, in general.
And then my last question is, when I first started to meditate, I had a meditating teacher that was like absolutely disgusted with the fact that I would meditate darkness in and exhale light. And then when I started to study Tibetan Buddhism, I was like disgusted with them because that you are supposed to meditate darkness in exhale light because it creates. I just realized it creates virtue.
Yeah. The wonderful thing about it is also that it creates courage.
Okay.
If you think about it, most people don't like the dark. And so you have aversion to it. You go, well, I'm going to work against aversion. Like, come on in. Okay. Anybody else? Alicia?
Oh, hi. I just had a question about when you were talking early in the lecture about when you have anger that arises and then you think about like, I don't want to die with this anger in my mind. So being conscious of death can help you kind of dissolve that anger. Recently, I've just been going through some therapy to try and kind of process some of the things that have happened earlier in my life and kind of feel that anger, not to perpetuate it, but just to kind of be able to kind of let it out, I guess, and let it go and move beyond it. And I guess I'm finding that that's a longer process than I'd like. And I guess I just wanted, I was curious if you had a comment on that, like when you're kind of in the process of working through, because I have to be careful when I hear those things to sort of not repress the anger. I think it is important that if it's there, it needs to kind of be expressed, not to perpetuate it, but to let it out. So if you're kind of in the process of kind of working through issues or working through emotions, is there any advice you have for that in terms of?
So there's quite a lot of different techniques you can use for any disturbing emotion, and anger being one of them. So the most common technique is to first look at, say, all the problems that anger brings, and go, so this is what anger does, and so you can actually see, oh my gosh, this is so harmful. I don't want to be angry. I'll try and do whatever I can not to be angry. So you can see, okay, there's that. But there's like, so just seeing the faults of it, is that enough to help? Well, it can certainly help a great deal, but you might find, no, that's not enough. I still feel angry, even though, I know there's faults. I know it's problematic for you, but I'm still angry, right? Sure, okay. So you go, okay, so then we have what they call like antidotes. So they will directly go against the anger. But so you might, for instance, have two of the main antidotes for anger are loving kindness, because love is like the opposite of anger. So you can't have both in the mind stream at the same time. The other is this idea of being patient. This patience is arising in you because you know the faults of the anger. You know that, like, if I get angry, this is what happens. So I need to be patient with the situation, whether it's my own pain or what I'm looking at, what I disagree with, whatever, you know, it's like, you can't be angry here. I've got to respond in some other way. So
Eddie,
then there's thought transformation. So thought transformation goes like, you can sort of go like, I'll experience this anger like I am angry. Right? You go, right, it's too late to catch it, you're angry. You can go, good. Let this anger be the foundation of the anger of all beings. While I experience this, may all beings be free of anger. So you make it useful, right? So that's an act of compassion. It's like, okay, but we transform it. We breathe it in and we let it out. And as we breathe out and let out, we go, all beings are free of anger. And we go, oh, isn't that wonderful? It's so wonderful. You know? So we can keep doing that. Another thing you can do is look at directly at the anger. Like, what is it? What is this thing? And you can do the similar thing to yourself. Instead of go like, who is this person that's so angry? So that's the sort of wisdom thing. We actually investigate the phenomena itself. So there are, at least 4 major branches you can go down to work with anger.
Eddie, can I also just add too that there is like a bit of a disjunction between like Western therapies and the Buddhist cures for anger. And so the whole thing with the Western therapy is kind of to try and figure out what's going on. And actually, from the Western point of view, it's more like just differentiating between going into the anger, which is actually hatred, and looking under the anger, which is hurt. So, you know, actually the anger is just like a result, isn't it? And so if we go into the expressing the anger, it can kind of backfire a bit because we might go deep into the hatred. So all of those antidotes that Eddie mentioned and everything are really fantastic for holding us back from the toxicity of hatred, you know, the real destruction of hatred. And then how to get underneath the anger, to see under our anger is hurt. And that's like, so getting into the anger, it's actually not getting into anger, it's getting underneath it. And then all of the Tonglen practices and the patience can naturally come because we recognize that hurt.
In fact,
thank you.
Yeah, so there's might be also interesting for you to find out what the term anger is actually referring to. You know, what does it mean? Because you might find it has different meanings within Western psychology to what it means in Buddhism. Yeah, which is actually good because it's sort of pointing out to you straight there. Oh my God, like what is this thing called anger? You're saying it's this, but I'm hearing this. You know, like it's, so you see, anger is dependent. That's terrific. You understand? Anger is dependent. It's empty of any intrinsic identity. Like I'm saying, like if you actually try and find anger, you know, it's not a bad idea to try and go, okay, so I'm going to get like, or see somebody else who's really angry, or I'm going to get angry and go like what is that? So what is this thing that I'm calling anger? How does it actually exist? So you get a bit of a surprise when you do something like that. And then of course, like I said, there's the direct antidotes, which are really like the loving kindness, the sort of things where you recognize, my God, the anger is destroying me. Like it doesn't have very, like whether the people are there or the situations are there or not, whenever I'm angry, I'm hurt. Like, is this a good way for me to deal with this? You can go, oh, can I deal with it in some other way? I don't feel so terrible. You go, yep. and then you have to decide whether you want to, Alicia. So, Paula, did you put your hand up, or no? You got your hand on your head.
So sorry.
No. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to ask or say?
I just want to say, Eddie, I love your style. I've said that before. I'll say it again.
Okay, let's get back to our...
Eddie, you're a wonderful teacher.
Oh, well,
that's a big thank you from Danny. I know the sound is breaking up, but yeah.
Okay, so let's take what we've understood on this topic and use our knowledge of death in a meaningful way. And this meaning produces within us less suffering, greater skill to help others deal with the sufferings of death. And may our death become just another step on our way to becoming enlightened for the benefit of others. So please recite with me. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. And may the supreme jewel, bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow. And may that born have no decline, but increase forevermore, such that as long as space abides, as long as sentient beings abide, we too will abide to dispel their suffering. Okie dokie.
So, Eddie, just stop this share for a second.
Yep.
And
so we've come to an end of this series, and I think we have a month's break, and then we come back.
No. This series continues, but you've all got a treat coming up for the next 4 weeks. You've got Venerable Kartsen, I think, from Chenrezig Institute, and I think the topic is going to be on the 5 powers. I just seem to remember reading that, but anyway, he's a really fantastic teacher and wickedly funny at times too. So you're in for a treat, and you know, he's been the translator with Geshe Sultram for many years at Chenrezig Institute. So he's, you know, teaching in his second language. He translates into his third language. He's just, you know, ridiculously smart. So he's for 4 weeks, and then Eddie's back again in September on the 4 opponent powers. So you're in the right time slot, folks. Just keep on coming along.
Okay, so thank you so much for being here, making my life meaningful and useful. And if I'm still alive in a month, I hope to see you all again. Okay, bye-bye then. Thank you once again.
Bye, folks.